Welcome to Happy, Healthy, Whole, and Rich, where faith meets action and transformation is non-negotiable. I'm Tina Brinkley Potts, and I believe now is the time to step boldly into your power, walk in divine wisdom, and claim the life you were meant to live. Each episode, I'll bring you real, unfiltered truth, because this world needs leaders who refuse to shrink. Let's get it. Welcome back to Happy, Healthy, Whole, and Rich. I'm Tina Brinkley Potts, and I want to remind you, I know who I play for, and so do you. We've come a long way together these last two episodes. We talked about how nothing in your life has been wasted. Every job, every industry, every season was building you for a time such as this. Then we talked about what to do with all of it, how to stop burying your gift and let them make room for you, how to let what you live circulate instead of staying buried in fear. Today, I want to bring it all the way home. Today, I want to describe her to you, the woman all of this has been pointing toward, the one who's integrated, the one who's stewarding what she's been given. I want to describe the healthy, wealthy woman. Because I think a lot of us have spent our lives believing health and wealth live in a separate room. That you either take care of your body and your peace, or you build your business and your bank account, but not both, not fully, at the same time. I want to challenge that today. I want to show you what it looks like when a woman stops splitting herself between those two rooms and starts living whole in both. I think about the woman I used to be. The one clocking in at a job that paid the bills but didn't feed anything else in me. I remember believing somewhere underneath the surface that wealth was a reward you earned after you sacrificed enough of yourself. That peace was something you'd get eventually once the money was sorted out. That health was something you'd prioritize later once the business was stable. Always later. Always after. Always once something else came first. That's not integration. That's just another silo wearing a nicer outfit. The healthy, wealthy woman doesn't operate that way anymore. And I want to be really specific about what that actually looks like, because I don't want this to stay abstract for you. She protects her peace the same way she protects her income, because she's finally understood they're not competing priorities. They're the same priority wearing two different faces. A woman who is depleted cannot build sustainability. A woman who is anxious cannot make her clearest decisions. A woman who has abandoned her body in pursuit of her business will eventually watch her body force her to stop. And that's not punishment. That's just how integrated systems work. What you neglect in one room eventually shows up in every other room. I've lived both sides of this. I built things while running on fumes, telling myself exhaustion was temporary and I'd rest once I hit the next milestone. And I've also built while being whole, rested, prayed up, in my body instead of white-knuckling past it. I can tell you plainly which version produced better work, better decisions, and a business that didn't require me to fall apart to sustain it. The healthy, wealthy woman also knows something most entrepreneurship spaces don't teach you. She's the asset. Not just her knowledge, not just her time, and definitely not just her labor. Her. All of her. We spend so much energy trying to package pieces of ourselves into something marketable. Extract the skill, extract the story, extract the lesson, and leave the rest of us behind like it wasn't necessary to the value. But you were not fearfully and wonderfully made in fragments. Psalm 139 doesn't say your talents are wonderfully made, or your resume, or your highlight reel. It says you are, every part. The parts that produce results and the parts that produce scars. The parts you'd put on a business card and the parts you've never mentioned in a pitch meeting. What she lived, what she survived, what she's learned in every unrelated looking room she's ever stood in. That's inventory. That's capital. We talked about that last episode. But the inventory was never separate from her. It is her. She is not a woman who happens to possess valuable experience. She is the value, expressing itself through experience. That distinction matters because when you believe your knowledge is the asset, you can still hide behind it, package it, perform it, keep the rest of yourself protected. But when you believe you are the asset, there's nowhere left to hide. You stop shrinking yourself down to the parts that are easy to sell, and you finally let all of you step into the room. She's not burying any of it out of fear or false humility. She's circulating it, the whole of it, not a curated version of it. She understands that holistic health was never only about the number in her account. It was about the whole ecosystem. Her body, her mind, her spirit, her finances, her relationships, functioning as one integrated system instead of 5 competing ones. And that ecosystem only works because she finally stopped treating herself like a resource to be mined and started walking like the wonder she was already made to be. And she knows she's not building this alone in a vacuum either. She's part of something bigger than her individual hustle. She's part of a generation of women entrepreneurs who are done pretending faith and finance can't share a sentence, done pretending femininity and leadership are opposites, done pretending wellness is a luxury instead of infrastructure. She's not chasing balance, because balance implies 2 things sitting in careful opposition, always at risk of tipping. She's integrated, which means health and wealth aren't opposing weights on a scale for her anymore. They're 2 expressions of the same wholeness. I keep coming back to 3 John 1:2 because it's the verse this entire show was built on. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, and even thy soul prospereth. I want you to notice the order of that verse, because I think we skip past it too quickly. John doesn't say prosper, then get healthy, then work on your soul, in that order, in 3 separate seasons. He ties them together in a single breath. Prosperity, health, and the soul prospering together as one condition, not 3 separate achievements stacked on top of each other. Even as thy soul prospereth. The word even as is doing something important. It's telling us these things move together. Your outward prosperity was designed to move at the same pace, in the same rhythm as your inward wholeness. Not one waiting on the other, not one sacrificed for the other, together. But I want to take you to another verse because I think it's the foundation underneath 3 John 1:2. The reason prosperity and wholeness were always meant to move together in the first place. Psalm 139:14 says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Notice what David doesn't say. He doesn't say my gifts are wonderfully made. And he doesn't say my talents are wonderfully made, or my resume, or the parts of my story I'm proud of. He says, I am wonderfully made, the whole of him, not the curated selection of him. That's the verse underneath everything we've built across this arc. You weren't assembled from your best parts. You weren't wonderfully made in the seasons that made sense and merely tolerated in the seasons that didn't. The home health years, the concrete years, the years you'd rather leave off the resume, the years that were still finding their footing, all of it was included in fearfully and wonderfully made, not despite those seasons, through them. This is why the healthy, wealthy woman doesn't just believe her knowledge is valuable. She believes she is. Because if God works are marvelous, and she is one of those works, then the marvel isn't limited to the parts of her that produced a paycheck. It's the whole woman. Body, mind, spirit, story, scars and all. And that's exactly why 3 John 1:2 can ask for prosperity and health and soul to rise together. It's not asking 3 separate things to line up by coincidence. It's describing one wonderfully made woman, finally prospering as the whole person she was always curated to be. Not fragmented into parts that are marketable and the parts that get hitting, but whole, the way Psalm 139 already declared her to be before she ever built a single thing. She doesn't have to earn the right to be the asset. She is already one. She was fearfully and wonderfully made into one, long before she ever monetized a single lesson. Ernest Holmes taught that the law of mind is exact, that whatever you hold as your dominant belief about yourself becomes the pattern your life organizes around. If your dominant belief is that health and wealth are in competition, your life will keep proving that belief true over and over, no matter how hard you work. But if your dominant belief shifts to wholeness, to the understanding that every part of you is meant to prosper together, your life begins organizing around that instead. And I'd add this. Your dominant belief about your own worth matters just as much as your belief about wealth itself. If you believe you are simply a woman who possesses valuable knowledge, your life organizes around producing and protecting that knowledge. But if you believe you are the marvel, that you yourself are the wonderfully made asset, your life organizes around something far more sustainable than output. It organizes around being. Florence Scovel Shinn talked often about the idea that we must see the whole picture before we can experience the whole result. She says you can't pray for wealth with a consciousness of lack in your health and expect the wealth to feel like anything but more weight to carry. But I'd push that further. You also can't build wealth from a consciousness that only some parts of you are valuable, while the rest of you waits quietly in the background, unacknowledged. Wholeness is consciousness, has to include the whole self, the marketable parts and the sandpaper parts alike, before it can show up as a whole result in your life. Abraham Hicks teaches that alignment always precedes manifestation, that when you're vibrating from a place of wholeness instead of striving, what you're building comes easier, faster, and it holds. Struggle isn't proof you're doing it right. Alignment is. And here's what I've come to understand. You cannot be fully aligned while treating yourself like a resource to be extracted from. Alignment requires believing the whole of you is worth building from, not just the parts you've learned to package and present. The healthy, wealthy woman isn't building from striving. She's building from the settled knowing that she, in her entirety, was fearfully and wonderfully made for exactly this. And Dr. David Hawkins would remind us that on the map of consciousness, the states associated with true power, love, and peace sit far above the states of striving, fear, and pride. A lot of what gets called hustle culture in the online business space is actually operating from a lower vibrational floor than the woman living in it realized. A floor built on proving worth rather than recognizing it. The healthy, wealthy woman has moved, not because she stopped working hard, but because she stopped working to earn a value she already has. Marvelous are thy works, the psalmist said, and that my soul knoweth right well. She's not climbing towards worthiness. She's building from a worthiness her soul already knows. This is what all three of these episodes have been building toward. You were built for a time such as this. Your gifts make room for you. And you, not just what you know, not just what you survived, but you, wonderfully made in full, get to live as the whole woman those first two truths were always describing. Happy, healthy, whole, rich. Not four goals to chase separately. One woman, marvelously made, finally living integrated. I want you to sit with these questions, and I want you to take your time and answer honestly. Number one, where in your life have you been treating yourself as a resource to be mined, valuing your knowledge, your output, your usefulness, while overlooking the fact that you, in full, are the asset? Number two, read Psalm 139:14 slowly. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Which parts of your story have you been quietly excluding from that verse, as if they didn't count towards the marvel? Number three, where in your life have you been treating health and wealth as competing priorities instead of one integrated whole? Number four, what would it look like to protect your peace with the same intensity you protect your income? The same intensity you'd protect any asset you knew was irreplaceable. Number five, read 3 John 1:2 again slowly. What would it mean for your soul to prosper at the same pace as your finances, not one waiting on the other? Number six, where are you currently building from striving and proving rather than from the settled knowing that you were already wonderfully made? Number seven, if someone described you as a healthy, wealthy woman, whole, integrated, prospering on every side, herself the asset rather than merely possessing one, what would need to be true about your daily life that isn't true yet? I want you to see her clearly before we go. The healthy, wealthy woman. She's not divided. She's not choosing between her peace and her prosperity, her body and her business, her faith and her finances. She has stopped living in the silos this whole arc has been calling you out of. She is happy, she is healthy, she is whole, and because she is whole, she is rich. Rich in ways a bank account can only partially describe. She was built for a time such as this. Every room she ever stood in prepared her for this moment. Every gift, even the ones wrapped in sandpaper, made room for her to stand exactly here. And now she's not burying what she carries. She's letting it circulate. She's letting it multiply. She's letting it bless the woman standing where she used to stand. But here's the above everything else. She is not valuable because of what she knows. She's not valuable because what she survived or built or monetized or turned into a lesson for someone else. She's valuable before any of that. Fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works. That's not a verse about her achievements. That's a verse about her. She's the asset. She always was. Every skill, every scar, every unrelated looking room she's ever stood in. Those weren't the source of her worth. They were simply where her worth chose to show itself. If any part of this arc had steered something in you, if you started to feel what it would mean to actually live integrated instead of just believing it's possible, to know yourself as the marvel instead of just the knowledge you carry, I want you to know that's exactly the work we go deeper on inside of Glow. God's love overflows within. It's where I walk women through what we've only had time to touch on here, at a pace that lets it actually take root in your life. But wherever you go from here, hear this before you go. You were never meant to live fragmented. You were never meant to choose between your peace and your prosperity. And you were never meant to believe your worth lived only in what you produce. You were wonderfully made, whole, on purpose for a time such as this. I know who I play for, and I pray that after today, you remember who you play for too. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay whole, and stay rich in understanding that this is all you. So it's time to do right by you. If this arc has spoken to you, if somewhere across these 3 episodes you saw yourself, send this to one woman who needs to hear that she doesn't have to choose, that she is not just carrying value, she is the value, marvelously, wonderfully made. She was never meant to be fragmented. She was meant to be the healthy, wealthy woman. And let's grow together. Head over to happyhealthywholerich.com for more powerful teachings and join the movement. Remember, your breakthrough is waiting, but you have to show up. Until the next time, stay happy, healthy, whole, and rich.